will be a virtual of the Marinwood CSD Board of Directors. There will be no public location for participating in this meeting. Any interested members of the public can participate telephonically or via internet by utilizing the link or the dial-in information printed on this agenda. Instructions on how to make a public meeting comment during the meeting. At points during the meeting, when the meeting chair requests public comment, members of the public participating in the live meeting, either via internet or telephone, shall indicate their desire to speak. You can indicate if the participant via internet, please press the raise hand feature located within the Zoom's application screen. If connected via phone, please dial *9. All public comments shall be addressed to the Board of Directors and limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The Board of Directors may choose to respond to the comments or request that staff to respond at the conclusion of the public comment period. All right, so I'm going to call to order to start the meeting. And Tiffany, can we do a roll call?
Of course. Board Vice President Oiserman.
Here.
Director Case.
Here.
Director Kilkenny.
Here.
Director Shea.
Here.
And I am recording an absence for Board President Ruggieri.
Yes. Okay, so with Lisa's absence, I'd like to propose amendment to the agenda before we vote to approve the agenda and adopt it. We have on District Matters, number 3, review of the Marinwood CSD Board of Directors bylaws. And I think that this is something that all of us should be here for. And I know that Lisa definitely wanted to talk about this. So I'm going to say that I motion to adopt the agenda, but removing item E3 for next month's agenda. And is that okay with everybody? Okay.
Sure.
And do I need to do public comment regarding changing the agenda, Eric?
Well, you should get a motion in a second.
Okay, can I get a motion in a second, please?
So
Well,
moved.
Yeah, there you go.
Seconded.
Okay, so we are going to adopt the agenda, but then could I get some public comment if we have any?
Sure, one sec. You have no hands raised.
No hands raised. Okay, so we will go on to the consent.
You need a vote.
Oh, I need a vote. Sorry, go ahead, Tiffany.
Board Vice President Oiserman.
Aye.
Director Case.
Aye.
Director Kilkenny.
Aye.
Director Shea.
Aye.
Thank you.
And I have elderberry tea here that I'll be drinking, trying to avoid the COVID surge that's occurring. Sorry. Okay, I told you, random comments. All right, so let's talk about the consent calendar. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, I guess we need to approve the resolution 2022-07, making findings and confirming the need to continue conducting remote meetings via teleconference of the Board of Directors, the Fire Commission, and the Park and Recreation Commission.
This is all part of the consent calendar.
Okay, so we can do it all together. Perfect.
Correct.
All right, I remember that now. Does anybody have any?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second. Oh,
All right, before we vote, is there any questions from the public
Comments, yeah, one second.
or comments, questions? Thoughts? Hi, Stephen.
Good evening, everybody. It's a question regarding the expense for Murray Building. I noticed it was another 156K paid out, and I'm just wondering how much we have paid for our building and how much we have to go. That's a question.
Okay, do you have any other questions about it too? So then we'll put them all in and then we'll answer it at the end.
Well, it's okay.
You
I mean,
have two
that's
questions.
the real important one.
Okay, is there anything else?
Well, let's see. I was expecting an answer. Okay, please,
Okay.
you know,
So-
I'm gonna just break here for a second because I do want to have a respectful dialogue back and forth. I do not want to be shut down. The Park and Rec member, the commissioner, whoever it was extremely rude at that meeting. I don't expect a repeat of that this evening. And the way we can do this is just by being civil and, basic, kindergarten manners that we learned in kindergarten, being respectful of one another. So I'm sorry, I don't have any more questions at this time. I really am interested in the status of the payments for the building, however, and so detailed information on that would be most welcome.
All right, thank you. I have no idea what happened at the Parks and Rec Commission, so please give me some grace here. And I just wanted to remind you that when we said we're going to look for you to make all your requests for comments and your comments, and requests for questions. And then at the end of the 3 minutes, we will go ahead and answer what we can. So that's why I was asking what I asked. Eric, is there an answer that we can give Stephen?
I'm gonna have to look it up. It's not something I have immediately in front of me, but it's ultimately he has come through, pretty much completed the project. So that brings you to a total of payments now at 1.103, and then he's got on retainer or the retention at 55,191 that is yet to be paid out, and then that
And
will
that's
close
all.
out. That will close out that contract, correct?
And that was all what we expected, and small things that we approved that needed to be approved when there was changes, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, is there any other public comments or questions?
There's no other hands raised.
Okay, perfect. And I guess no other board members have any questions about the bills paid or the draft minutes? All right, so is there a motion to approve?
A motion and a second. Would you like to vote now?
Yes, please.
Board Vice President Oyserman,
Aye, yes.
Director Case,
Aye.
Director Kilkenny,
Aye.
and Director Shea.
Aye.
Thank you.
And again, everybody, thank you for giving me some grace. I may have been at lots of board meetings, but apparently running them is always different. All right, so we are at D, the public comment. So I'm just going to read this real quick. Speakers are asked to address comments to the board and limit comments to 3 minutes. Speakers may comment only on non-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the district. The board may not take action on or consider, the board may not take action on, consider, or debate items not on the agenda except under narrow circumstances meeting statutory tests. Response to comments on the non-agenda items will be limited to factual information or clarifying questions from staff or board at the conclusion of the public comment period. The president may refer the matter to staff or to future meeting agendas. And we're going to let people ask all their questions, and then once they are done, we will answer them. So just to clarify. All right, any public raised hands?
Yeah, 1 second.
Yes, Stephen.
You're doing fine, Saban. So don't worry about that. This spring is another beautiful spring in Lucas Valley. And it's a constant reminder of the rebirth, growth and rebirth and death that occurs in nature. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the district, because I'm a little concerned that we, for too long, have taken the attitude that if we get just enough done, that's good enough. And in fact, as you see in nature, rust happens, death happens, erosion happens, stuff just happens. And if we are not doing a little bit more than just emptying trash cans and, doing the typical chores that we need to do every year, we're not doing enough. We're going to fall behind. And it is so evident if you go through the park of the things that have been left behind. We've talked about the grill that rusted through, that must have been rusting through for the last 5, maybe even 10 years. I don't know. But that was complete neglect of our park assets. We need you, each one of you, to provide vision, direction, hope, and a vision for a better Marinwood for tomorrow. And we need you to inspire the staff and hold them accountable for achieving that vision. I think you have it within you. If you don't, you're just kind of wasting your time here. You know, you should watch a movie or something instead of come to these meetings, because simply approving the same old is not going to just even keep us even in the community, because rust happens, erosion happens, death happens, all kinds of stuff happen, and we need to be pushing back and growing. That's it.
And I'm muted. Sorry. Thank you, Stephen, for that comment. Any other raised hands, Eric?
Yeah, 1 second, please.
Okay, thank you.
Jason.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I was curious. I was recently reading that California is now the first state to phase out gas-powered leaf blowers and lawnmowers. And I was curious what the plan was with Marinwood, because I guess Governor Newsom signed this bill into law last October, and I guess it goes into effect in 2024. So I was just wondering what the plan was for kind of accommodating that phase out. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Should we wait until later during Parks and Rec, or could Luke or you comment on that now, Eric?
If Luke's got something, he's welcome to.
I don't have much to answer with, except that if this actually ends up staying in effect come 2024, we'll have to buy some new equipment. And there are some pieces of equipment that we use that have a good alternative, and there's some that do not at the moment. So we stay up on what the current trends are with our different pieces of machinery and equipment. And what I read a lot of consumer reports and reviews on things, and stay up on products that are coming out. And I'm sure that this legislation has sparked a lot of innovation, and a lot of companies will be pushing to bring out different versions of leaf blowers and chainsaws and lawnmowers and stuff that do not use gas. And so I'm sure there'll be a lot of things on the market. There's not a whole lot of options at the moment, but I'm sure that'll change in the coming years. So we'll be staying up on that and replacing things as needed, if needed. So
Thank you, Luke. And I'm sure we will start putting a writing in to our line items with budget that this may be coming down the line and might be needing to be taken care of, like we do with everything else. All right. Is there any other public questions or comments?
You have no more comments.
Okay, perfect. So moving on to district matters. The first thing that we have is a request from the Juarez family for placement of the memorial bench at the Marinwood Park Horseshoe Pits in memory of Jim Juarez. And we're being asked to approve this. Does anybody have any comments? Or Eric, did you want to say something about this?
Yeah, I give you a lead in. Sean Juarez, who was Jim Juarez's son, a local resident, reached out to me a while back with this request. You can see his letter attached and included in the board packet. This was discussed at the PNR meeting last month because that is how our policy is written, and that requests such as this go through the respective commissions first. I will say, and Chris and or Luke, who are both at the meeting, are certainly welcome to add. It was incredibly well received by the PNR Commission. They voted unanimously to recommend that the Board of Directors approve this request as well. As staff, we certainly recommend that it is approved. The one item that we did discuss is obviously there's work being done to that area. Some refurbishment of the horseshoe pit area has always been part of the plan, is written in on the plans. So we wanted to get a little further along before we actually place a bench and just be able to be a little bit more thoughtful in its placement with the overall design and work that's happening to that entire area. Otherwise, we certainly recommend and then would ask the board to just direct staff to work directly with the Juarez family in terms of, bench selection and placement and every, language on the plaque, everything else.
That sounds very thoughtful and like a very good idea. Anybody else have any questions or comments they want to say about this?
I'll just jump in, Eric. That was a great recap, and just say that it was we often discuss things that are we have to go back and forth on them, and maybe we question some things. It was really nice to spend a few minutes celebrating Jimbo, and just everybody acknowledging the fact that when we have somebody who's such an important member of our community that unfortunately passes, that we definitely take the opportunity, especially with the family supporting this so much, to recognize them in a way that is both powerful for the community and also powerful for the family. And I want to acknowledge the fact that Jimbo's wife, Margot, and his daughter, Stephanie, are on with us right now. And I'm so happy to have you guys join us tonight. Thanks, you guys.
Okay. Anybody else have anything that they wanted to say?
I think that's a good
Do
segue.
we
I'm sorry, go
make
ahead.
a
Kathleen.
motion before we?
Well, what I would like to do, actually, instead of just before you go to regular public comment, I'd actually like to bring over, there's a member, as Chris said, there are members from the Juarez family, one of whom has their hand raised. I'd like to bring them over to speak to their request, not necessarily as part of a public comment on this, but as somebody directly involved in this particular request, if that is
Okay.
okay with all of you.
I think that
No, it's
that-
fine. Yeah.
Great,
Of
one
course.
second.
Do that.
Hello, Margot.
Yeah,
Great. I
Very.
saw your hand was raised. Wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to this, please.
yeah, I just want to tell you that Sean is down in San Diego helping his daughter move home in the next couple of days from San Diego State. So I just want to quickly say that a thank you to all of the kind words from the Park and Rec meeting last month. All the kind words that you guys shared about your relationships with Jim, including Steve Nestor. He was the one person from outside the Park and Rec who spoke so kindly of Jim. And Jim was definitely a very positive person and represented the best of what Marinwood stands for, family, friendship, and inclusiveness. So I just want to thank you all for considering the request for a bench, and it makes us all very sometimes emotional. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I only briefly met your dad. He was coming.
Husband.
Sorry. So sorry.
That's okay.
Coming to the Water Devil practice, and definitely a character, talking everybody up. And we enjoyed having him interacting, even though I didn't know him very well. And my condolences. It's very hard, especially nowadays, to lose somebody. And my condolences and thank you so much for being such a wonderful part of this community.
Thank you very much.
I would like to thank you for sharing him with all of us and letting him have the freedom to go around Marinwood and spread his smiles and on deck. And you are always welcome to a swim meet. Whether your granddaughters are swimming or not, you guys are always part of the Water Devil family. But I also want to thank you for everything that you both did for our community through all these years. So
Thank you, Kathleen,
you're welcome.
a lot.
And Stephanie too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Val, I don't want to cut you off. Did you want to say something? No? Okay. So do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And then do we need to vote officially on this?
You gotta ask for, you do
Public
have some other
comment.
public comment.
Okay, more public comment. Sorry about that.
Sure, 1 second.
Hi, if Margot's, this is Steve Nessel, and if Margot's still listening, I just want to, once again, Jim really moved me. He reminded me of my dad, and maybe that's why I immediately took a liking to him. He was such a friendly guy, and he was the kind of person that kind of lived to make other people happy, and that's really cool. So I'm so thrilled that we're going to honor him. And I would like to say, this is the first time I heard tonight that we're also revamping the horseshoe pit area. I think that's great. I think it needs it. And I just want to make sure that the setting is a true honor, and we can make our park better. The horseshoe pit has been a huge success. Just, we live in a community with $1 million homes at the minimum, and I'm not saying, sauce it up. But let's make sure that this is something that we can look at and feel proud of. So that's great. I'd also, while we're on the subject, we have talked about a bocce court, and that would be made similar. And I think that's something that should also be considered at the same time of restoring the horseshoe pit, because it'd be very easy to do, basically the same materials and equipment. So anyhow, that's all I have to say. I'm glad we're doing it, and God bless.
You have no other comments.
Thank you for knowing what I was saying while I was muted. Okay. So can we have a vote, Tiffany?
Absolutely. Board Vice President Oyserman,
Aye.
Director Case,
Absolutely, yes.
Director Kilkenny,
Yes.
and Director Shea.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
And then before we move on, Marco, I will reach back out to Sean, and staff will be in touch, and we'll start the planning process on all of this so that she is aware. And give me 1 more second. I think that she would just like to say 1 more word, if you're okay with that, Siobhan.
I am totally okay with that.
Margot.
Myself. So just once again, thank you so much, and I appreciate all your comments, and have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
for joining us. Okay. All right. So E2, the financial year 2022-2023 proposal of district operating budget. So we've been looking at versions of this budget for the last few meetings, and we finally have it squared away, right? As squared away as a budget can be when the world changes constantly. Does anybody have any questions? Or Eric, did you want to have any comments? I mean, you did a great job of writing out everything in your report, so not sure what other things people might have, but.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to add anything, it just, you guys looked at this again at the last meeting. There has any additional budget changes at this point have all been very minimal. So there's nothing I would really point out changing from last meeting to this meeting. Obviously, I have the note about the deferred revenue. And just if there's any questions on what that means, it's just ultimately revenue that has come in this fiscal year, but won't be applied until next fiscal year, because that's when the programs that that revenue is intended for will happen. So that's when it gets earned. We'll be deferring approximately, you know, $750,000 in revenue. And that's just as of now. This is all revenue that'll come in all the way up to 6/30 for any program after 7/1. And then the only other things I would just kind of point out, you know, as of April 30th, our treasury fund was currently at 7.4 million. But the net cash balance of that is actually 6.89 or 98 million, just due to some of the restricted funds that are captured in there. That's actually an increase over last fiscal year at this point in time. However, that's really just a reflection of cash flow and primarily due to rec programming being so much farther expanded and taking in so much cash. So I assume it'll be much closer to what we anticipate come June 30th, which should still represent a healthy net operating gain. Overall, the budget does still project for slightly over $400,000 net gain. That is still including 100,000 towards our OPEB trust and another 100,000 to be put towards the board designated reserves, both of which have been incorporated into this budget. That said, there's pages of detailed notes by department as well as some district-wide notes. Most of those have been covered in previous board meetings, but I'm happy to answer or clarify any questions that any board members may have.
I'm going to open up the floor. Does anybody have any questions for Eric? Board member wise? Oh, go ahead, Bill.
You're on mute, Bill. There you go.
Yeah. Is there any reason why we can't bump up the overtime for the fire department budget wise when we're already almost double that now? And we
I
haven't
did.
even closed the year.
I did bump it up.
I know.
50,
much.
you know, 50% from what it traditionally has been. And also I'm hopeful that we'll be able to operate at full staffing for the majority of next fiscal year, which we haven't been able to do for this whole year, which has incurred a lot of overtime. And then you also have to take that into context with, you know, some of the overtime that does get reimbursed through both the strike team, which we're still waiting on reimbursement for, as well as the overtime that is served in in Santa Fe that Santa Fe reimburses us all the cost for on that as well. That said, you know, it's recognized, Bill, and I did move it up 50%, and I'm just trying to see if we can ever, in my time here, actually have a majority of a year where we can operate with our full 9 staff, because that will lower the overtime significantly.
Yeah. All right. And we're expecting that 9th person to come back.
I am hopeful that something will be resolved there before too long.
Okay. All right. That was my only.
It was a good question. It's a question we all have. All right, anybody else? Okay, should we motion before we open up?
You can, sure.
Or I'll just open it up to public comment. Go ahead.
That's fine. And I do want to state, and I forgot, I want to thank Luke and I want to thank Chief White, as well as a lot of our other staff who've put a lot of time. I mean, the budget is a multi-month process and putting it together and doing a lot of research and analyzing and planning for programs. And Chief White took his time to meet with me. All of the fire captains next door took their time to meet with me. Luke certainly put a lot of effort into this, as did Robin and JP. And so it's really appreciated. It's a team effort in putting the budget together. It's a large project that multidisciplinary departments takes a lot of thought and effort. And so thank you guys very much.
And we can see it because the numbers don't change that much with each iteration. It's clear that even at the beginning, you guys have done a lot of work and put a lot of thought into it. So the numbers in the budget isn't wildly moving around as we're amending it. So yes, thank you so much, everybody, for your hard work. All right, comments from the public.
Yeah, 1 second.
So it's really nice to see the fat revenue growth. You know, thank God for inflation. Our real estate prices are going up and their tax revenue is going up along with it. Of course, we're going to be hit with inflationary costs like every family will be. I alluded to this before. We live now in a community where the average house is worth at least $1 million, some a lot more. And we really need to look at our park differently. If you look at our park, I believe it's 14 acres, just Marinwood Park, this local park. And we only really actively maintain about half that, or maybe even a third. That part is maintained well, but other areas of Marinwood Park are being ignored. And so in general, I think the budget is fine. However, we need more resources where it counts. When we build up our park, we're building up our community. We're building pride in our community. And quite frankly, we're putting money in your pocket. And so, the vision for the Miller Creek Trail, a functional picnic area, accessibility concerns, bathrooms, a horseshoe pit that looks like a horseshoe pit in a sophisticated community, perhaps a bocce court. These are things that we really should have in Marinwood Park, and the resources need to be devoted in that area. I wish some of you would speak more passionately about our parks. I hate to be the only one doing that. I know I'm not the only one who is passionate about our parks, but it really is half of what we do. And with the amount of money that we take in, there's no reason why we can't have what we want. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments, Stephen. Okay. Do I have a motion?
You have another comment.
Oh, I have another
Siobhan.
comment. Sorry.
Yes,
Sorry
no
about that.
problem. 1 second. Jason.
Yeah, I don't know where this fits in the agenda, but from the last meeting, I believe there was a request to provide an update on the tennis courts. And I also am not sure how, I'm kind of new to this process, so I don't know whether I can respond once an answer is given or whether I'm just put back on mute, but it would be good to know about that as well. But essentially the question is, the cracks in the new tennis courts are a concern to me. The response was that, well, they're still playable. And of course they're playable, but they were just resurfaced in the fall. And I think there was going to be some investigation into that a little bit further and a response to that. And the reason I'm bringing this up again is that the lower courts are arguably not playable. And the upper courts are essentially used a lot for lessons. And which means that the lower courts are the only courts that are available. The lower courts have a lot of water damage. It's not just the cracks. There's just a lot of dead spots that cause the ball to bounce in a way that makes it really not playable. So the whole question of whether something is playable or not is, I think, kind of like a non-answer to the question about the fact that these cracks are already showing up in the brand new surface courts. So, and the reason that this is a concern to me is that, the lower courts have been neglected so far that, I would hate to have the upper courts get to the same level of disrepair that the lower courts are. So I just was curious whether there was any kind of further investigation into what the state of the upper courts was and how to remedy that problem. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Jason, for your comments. So currently we were taking comments about the budget, and anything about the tennis courts and stuff would technically fall under the Parks and Recreation matters. So just for future reference, since you said you didn't know if this is where it would be. And so we will address the comment when we talk about the Parks and Rec that you just gave, because it is actually not about the budget itself. It's about the status of the courts and not about how we're going to be spending money in the budget. Okay. And in general, we don't do a back and forth. So I'm answering questions because you're new to coming, but we don't do a back and forth during these comment periods. All right, so can I have a motion to approve the?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Bill. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I'm usually the seconder. I know it's hard. All right,
We
Tiffany,
both unmuted at the same time, so I thought he would jump in it, so I'll second it.
Tiffany, could we have a?
Of course. Board Vice President Oyserman,
Aye.
Director Case,
Aye.
Director Kilkenny,
Aye.
Director Shea.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, we are skipping ahead. We are not doing E3 because we moved that to next month. Then we have the district manager report from Eric.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna actually parlay off of Mr. Hasrick's comment there and go a little bit out of order. And then obviously Luke can speak more to this during his report. A few things came up that kind of involved capital projects last month. One of those was, just some of Chris's questions or thoughts about future discussion around, kind of big projects, or what basically we kind of refer to as capital projects. The tennis courts would certainly fall into that. And actually, we have long kind of maintained a list of capital needs, as well as recently accomplished projects for the last several years. So that's actually going to be planned for the agenda next month. So you can kind of look at this in context of a lot of the larger capital projects. The tennis courts are certainly part of that list. So there will be certainly some more conversation around all of the projects in general. And again, if Luke wants to touch a little further on tennis courts in his report, that's great. And to Mr. Hasrick, I would certainly encourage you and welcome you to reach out to staff. We're happy to talk to you outside of the kind of formal meeting standpoint. We're always pretty accessible and easy to find. So anyway, that's for next month, and just thought that would be a good way to respond to some of the comments that came up last month. In regards to the other items, I do have an update on the Miller Creek Trail initiative, because that had come up. I was able to speak with and receive a formal letter from Robert Eves, who is kind of the principal developer of the senior facility, in regards to the project, cost sharing, reasonable expectations. And again, these conversations have always been very amiable, just trying to kind of figure out, because they're trying to work off of something that was written 16 years ago. So a lot of circumstances have changed in that time. And, I think we've kind of reached, and he came to a good conclusion on that. It would make sense that if there was a way to ascertain a cost for developing the trail as directed by the county and as described in the division agreement, that would be the amount that they would contribute towards this in, for modern day construction costs. I actually think that is a fair solution and a fair compromise. However, we don't know exactly what that is. So I reached back out to Timothy Best, who is the one who produced the incredibly detailed report. Robert Eves definitely thought he would be a recognized expert in this as well, to say, hey, if you could revisit this agreement and based on your personal reconnaissance of the area, provide a cost estimate for building a trail as described in this report, or if you feel that one of the trails that's already listed in your report as an option would meet this, let us know that too. He did get back to me very quickly, but also informed me that he's out of town until the end of the month, but he would be happy to work on this upon his return. So as soon as I can get some of that information from him, we could put some concrete numbers behind that. I really don't even want to speculate on what those numbers would be. I'd rather wait and get the information from a subject matter expert on that. So that is where we are. And again, Mr. Eves, certainly recognizes that they do have an obligation to this, and we're just trying to figure out what is a reasonable expectation for that obligation, given that the district is, I believe, kind of decided, and staff strongly recommends that it would be irresponsible to build the trail as described in that initial agreement from 2006. And the only option we would really recommend would be, unfortunately, the most expensive option that Tim Best presented in his report, which is, closer to a $275,000 project. with that, moving on, the park maintenance facility, we actually received our temporary certificate of occupancy today from the county. So that is a good thing. That basically says they have signed off on the building itself. However, the permit does not get closed out until all the items that are listed on the permit are either deemed not going to be completed or have been completed. And the other big items on there, obviously, really only thing remaining is the courtyards and then a couple other planning conditions. I can also tell you, and I'm happy to tell you, that yesterday the notice inviting bids for the courtyards was posted and sent to all of the required agencies, including Marin Builders, North Coast Builders Exchange, and 2 statewide agencies with requests to distribute to their members. So that'll be open for about 4 weeks. And then we are anticipating, hopefully, any bids received will be analyzed for qualifications, and then the low bids from that, along with a summary of the entire bid process, will be presented to the board for potential approval at your June board meeting. So lots of things going on in June, but that is a good thing. It was certainly kind of a lot of work, and needed to go back and kind of revisit some grading and some drainage issues through there, but that is out. So we are happy, and now it's just a waiting game to hope that bids come in and inquiries are received. Quick update, and I'm sure the chief will touch on this. I just wanted to touch on a couple things regarding some of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority projects. We do currently have goats grazing in Marinwood's open space. They recently finished up their grazing around the base of Grasshopper Hill, which is kind of northeast Marinwood. And now they are currently behind Idleberry Road and will be making their way along that open space from the county facilities all the way down and around past Miller Creek Road until they cross over Queenstone Fire Road. So that's always fun. I will say, obviously, we're just kind of reminding the public, please don't go pet the goats. Don't walk your dogs near the goats. We have had an incident occur already with an off-leash dog. That was a bit of a shame. So we are, just trying to get some word out about that. And then they will be finishing up the work on Queenstone Fire Road coming soon. And then just a large thanks once again to Chief White and his staff. Because you might have already had somebody come by your home, but the residential defensible space inspectors have been out for the past couple of weeks doing our free residential inspections and home hardening evaluations, and also providing information about upcoming chipper days, which is free opportunities for any of this flammable vegetation to be chipped and hauled at also no cost to the homeowner, and all of this is funded through the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. And all of these things are actually core projects, although the D-Space comes out of our D-Space budget, but the chipper days are part of the core space. The inspections we pay for, and the chipper days are paid for through the core. So hopefully that kind of fills you in on a lot of the other things that are going on, and happy to take any questions.
Anybody have any questions? I have 2 things I wanted to say, but I'm happy to take a back seat for a sec.
I'll just say that, Eric, I totally agree that we should wait for them to come back with a number. I'm talking about the trail update. But I think we need to think about that, just in the sense that, much like our maintenance facility became more expensive because we had to wait for a while to build it, just because they put out a number, in 2006, I don't know. I really feel like they should be taking additional responsibility for making this not just some flimsy trail that was discussed a long time ago. Had they built it then, we would have accepted it then, but they're building it now, so we should be reviewing that. But I totally agree, we should be waiting for what they come back with, and hopefully it all works out. My second, this is more of a question on the park maintenance facility. Does that mean that we can tighten up the fencing? I know we've been discussing that fencing and potentially moving it closer to the facility once some of that work was done, or are we still going to wait until we finish at least the west courtyard?
That's a good question, Chris, and I certainly have an answer for you. There's a couple other factors that play involved here. One is there's what's known as a bioretention pit that serves as a drainage pit for kind of coming off the roof lines through there that all the water has to drain into. Our staff is going to be constructing, probably an 18-inch tall split rail fence to go around that. And that is actually right on the edge of where the fence is. Another aspect of that we have added to the RFP as a additional alternate, just because we wanted to get some costs and thought that it would be smart to add it, is the actual construction and installation of the revised trail that is going to go through that area. It doesn't mean we have to accept it, but we certainly wanted to see what some of the costs were on it in the event that it comes in at a reasonable cost. If that's the case, it would make a lot of sense to have it laid out and put in at that same time. So if we are going to be doing that, we would probably keep the fences where they are the time being, so that way we can get that trail put in and laid out and going through that area, because it'll involve them kind of digging down a little bit as part of the grading work, and then laying the weed barrier, the base material, and then ultimately the trail material at the same area. So as much as I'd like to pull them in, it would just made too much sense to include as a potential additional alternate to the bid, the actual construction and implementation of that revised trail that'll be going through there, because it'll be a very clearly defined trail that goes through.
Totally makes sense. Thanks, Eric.
Of course.
Anybody else have anything? So Chris, I agree with you on what you said about the Miller Creek Trail, but from what I understood from Eric, we're going to do the proper trail no matter what. And clearly there's been a huge amount of costs of material and increase in interest rates, right, for everything. So the number we're going to get is going to be much higher. But then when we had talked about this previously, Eric, you had said that John Campo is going to really be helping us out with this. And this is his area of expertise, and he knows like where to get grants and stuff. So even if there is going to be a chunk of change left over, it sounds like we're going to be able to get some grants, and it won't be coming totally out of our pocket. So while it would have been nice that they paid the whole 275 or whatever it is, that I think at least a portion of it, a large portion, should be either covered by them or by grants. Does that make?
Oh, no, I totally understand where we're going. I just wanted to be on record as saying I think they should be really stepping up, because this is really a condition of their being able to develop that property.
I agree.
And if you don't meet that condition, you can't build on the property. It's that simple.
I have one correction, though. I don't think we agreed 100% or approved which way we were moving on this until we heard back from them. That was my.
That's true. We didn't approve a specific trail, but all of the indications.
No, but.
No, the reason we're talking about the 275,000 is that was the one that they recommended as the one that was the most stable and good for the environment and for the people. Correct, Eric? That's why we.
Well, it would also it would present the least amount of future maintenance. It would be built properly and go through there properly, and it would be built to last to the degree where the only maintenance it'd really need for the foreseeable future is cleaning up some limbs that fall across it and things along those lines. Any of the other trails would certainly not fall under that category, and I would not recommend building any of the other ones besides the option 1A that was presented in that report.
Correct. I just wanted to correct the statement that we have not approved it yet.
No, you're correct. We haven't approved anything. Right now, we're still in information gathering, and this is still an initiative, not an approved project.
Correct.
Yep, absolutely. I had something else to add on there, but I don't totally remember what it was. But yeah, I mean, let's see what Tim comes back with, and obviously as soon as we get that information, we'll bring it to the forefront and go from there.
I guess I had one last question about the goats. Would it be helpful if the middle school and the 2 elementary schools that are kind of right here emailed out to their people to be careful and maybe do leashed dogs while they're walking by that area?
Sure, it would be helpful. I don't, and it doesn't hurt to ask them. I think the schools are sending out a ton of other information and
That's
getting towards
true.
end of school year and everything else. We do have some next door posts that are out there that Quinn Gardner, the deputy emergency manager for the city of San Rafael, has put out, that those have gotten some good comments on them as well, and some clarification from her. Also includes some mapping, and we're just kind of hoping the dog incident was a isolated incident. It's the only time either of us had ever had something like that happen within the goats that we've had out there, but I just think it's also more a little of common sense. It seemed like it was a little bit of a neglectful dog owner in that particular incident.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm because, you've got a middle school teacher and me and the LVE, and so you've had people that can send out. Okay,
Chris, tell all
Um,
your students not to pet the goats.
yeah.
That would mean that they're listening to me. It's a little late. in the school year for that.
Okay.
And they're middle schoolers.
Do we have any public comment?
Yeah, if that's it for the board, no problem.
What, help me understand something. We do have a landscaping department, right? So when we do some of these projects, it's basically landscaping. Our crews have built fences, they've planned areas like right in front of the community center. I think if we want to see how our resources can go further, I think we should really look towards doing some of the finish up the project in-house. Now, we had a quote for $450,000, I think, for the fence. And that was several years ago. And one of the reasons why was the architect specified epee, which is an exotic hardwood, instead of cedar. Cedar, if you're a woodworker, you understand this. It's a $1.70 a board foot, and epee is 10 times that. It's $17 a board foot. Now that was a couple of years ago. It's probably double that now. First of all, I don't know what was sent out specifications wise, but I guarantee you can save a lot by re-specifying the materials and the construction, construction specs. We want to build Miller Creek Trail, and I'm going to just say it. I think probably the best way the cheapest way, but also the best way, because we will have the most control, is to, hire a few extra staff in the Parks Department. We now have the room for them, and a hands-on supervisor. Now, this is, different than what we've done in the past. But if we have great visions, if we want to expand the quality of our parks, I'm told that our staff is overworked as it is. Let's get more staff. Let's get more resources on the problem. I think we would end up saving money and building something more beautiful. Now, of course, a lot of that has to do with who you hire and the vision that you're trying to achieve. And lastly, I would say it might make sense to hire a landscape designer to look at the entire CSD property and give us some ideas for improvements. I recommend you all go to the Presidio. They've remade that area, and there's some really wonderful enhancements. There's no reason why we can't do the same in Marinwood Park.
Thank you, Stephen, for that comment. Do we have another comment from the public?
Nope, there are no other hands raised.
Okay. So this is just your report. Okay. Moving on to fire department matters. Chief, you're up.
Well, good evening.
District Manager Drykosen and Acting President Oysterman and Mrs. Cobrink and the directors. Good to see you again. I'll try to keep this as succinct as I can, although there's quite a bit of information. I'll give you a summary on the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority recent activities to start with. I'm not sure if you recall, but I was the Ops Committee Chairperson for the development of this year's 2022-2023 work plan. And as such, we met in April, the committee did, and as did an ad hoc finance committee meet to discuss the work plan and a variety of core projects. And if you recall, the core is roughly 60% of the allocation of the Measure C funding. There was some increase or proposed increases for the projects and some of those proposals that would have adversely impacted a lot of or all of the agencies' core allocation had we approved the request and the projects as they had come in. Fortunately, most, if not all of those projects were scalable. And as a result, based on questions I had and some of the other fire chiefs and other attendees had, we spoke with the director, Mark Brown, and his staff, and Crelock, and tried to get more information and figure out just how we could ensure that the concerns we had were addressed, but also look at scaling back some of the cost and projected requests for public education, environmental compliance, home hardening and grants, the direct assistance programs where you have staff come right out directly to the home, much like when we've had AmeriCorps personnel come out directly to properties. And along with the CHIPPR program and an evacuation risk assessment study, which was actually discussed on its own merit with the board of directors, largely in part because I think there was a lot of interest in that particular item. But that being said, after meeting and going back and reviewing the projects and ensuring that we had understanding about the scope of some of the projects, the intent, the metrics involved, we ended up meeting again just at the end of the month after the advisory technical committee had came back with their proposals and suggestions on how we could achieve savings and still meet the objectives that we had outlined for 2022, 2023. And so with that, the final meeting was held last week on May 3rd, and we have what we believe is a finalized product that will be going forward to the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority Board of Directors on May 19th for review and consideration. And so with that, there's a lot of information, a lot of projects and proposals, and they really continue the great work that's been done over the first 2 years of the MWPA. But that being said, we want to still ensure that what we're doing continues to reduce risk, ensure that we create mechanisms for not only now, but for in the future on how we prioritize projects and how we can move forward effectively to continue to draw down risk and ensure that the funds are being spent in the manner that will really get a lot of work done. And that was I think the big concern as we met about the core and the impact to our budgets locally, not on the local pot, but locally by agency, is that if we start handing a lot of money back over to other entities and other responsibilities, although it may have a countywide effect and it may be helpful in the long run, it still doesn't help the agencies themselves target specific projects they may have in their own community. And so this was a fine balance that we're trying to meld here between how we do work countywide and within zones, but also locally, so you still have the revenue available to get substantial work done in your own communities. And so that balance, I think we achieved it this year, but moving forward, it's certainly going to require a lot of back and forth and some focus and some future metrics being put in place to ensure that the work that's being done, you can see the progress, but also project where work needs to go next year after year. So be looking for more information on that as we move forward. And if there's any concerns or anything unique that comes out of the board of directors meeting on the 19th, I'll certainly report back that information next month. District Manager Drykosen spoke earlier about some of the other work that's already started as of just the last week or so, including the goat grazing that started on Grasshopper Hill and it's moved towards Idleberry Road. In addition, there's also additional work taking place on Queenstone, and that work involves fire mulching on the fire roads, or excuse me, mulching on the fire roads. And so given that, there's a lot of good work taking place right now. I know the inclement weather has kind of impacted a little bit, but not, terribly. We had masticator work that was being performed on Queenstone Fire Road. And if you looked at the photos in the report, you could see the substantial change and the difference between the before and afters. And it's just amazing to see what that piece of equipment can accomplish. It's unique. I haven't seen it in person, but I've actually seen the outcome. And a masticator is really a great tool to grind down stumps and other areas that could potentially create some travel and or other hazards for equipment. So if you look at the before and after photos on that particular fire road, amazing roadside clearance, but also just really effective work being done with that piece of equipment. So we expect to be utilizing that more and more throughout the community as we see the need and the value. Moving on to COVID and vaccinations. I'm not going to touch on this one too much, but clearly, although we may be moving out of the pandemic, there's significant concerns starting to surface about the rate of infection that's happening here in the Bay Area. And I think we're seeing clearly within our communities in Marin that there's a increase in the number of infections that are taking place at large gatherings and or at schools, as an example. I was just at the May Madness car show, and it was a beautiful day on Saturday, and there was just literally hundreds of people up and down 4th Street. And it just made me wonder, all for just a brief moment, everything felt pre-2020, and it just felt good. But I wondered later on, was that a false sense of security? And I certainly hope not. But that being said, there's a new subvariant to the subvariant that had been talked about a while back, the BA2. The other variant is called the BA2.12.1. Starts to get a little complicated. I wish they would just name it as opposed to giving it all these scientific numbers. But that being said, it first really was discovered and surfaced in the US back on the East Coast. And it was a concentrated area where this was really taking hold and moving quickly. Well, apparently that same variant is now moved out west, and it's taking hold and moving pretty quickly out here. It's leading to an increased number of hospitalizations, but really not necessarily the deaths at this point. And that's the encouraging thing about what's going on with the subvariant, is that there's illness and people are getting the symptoms and signs, but not really the deaths that we saw roughly 2 years ago when the pandemic started to peak, when the numbers were rising much the way they are right now. So I'm just hopeful that these are diluted versions of the original COVID that'll give us, flu-like symptoms, but not really have the same long-term or even severe outcomes as before. So that being said, different communities are considering going back to masking. Different communities are considering other mandates. I haven't heard of anything really coming forward in Marin County at this point, but that could very well change depending on hospitalizations and whether or not we see a continued spike or increase in the number of infections in our community. And as we approach the summer months, the possibility of this really looms. And so I'll provide a little bit of update on that next month as we're able to watch the trend of how this is playing out. Moving on to Friday, April 15th, the San Rafael Fire Foundation had been looking at ways to show our first responders in both San Rafael and Marinwood some form of appreciation for the difficult and the commitment they showed, the difficult work and the commitment they showed throughout the pandemic. And someone had an idea of doing a magic show. Somebody had an idea of, having a big breakfast gathering, kind of like the way the pancake breakfast would be, but it just seemed like that was kind of difficult to do right now. So they landed on going to Andy's Market and creating a bunch of food baskets. And those food baskets consisted of meatless meat or meatless sausage, hickory smoked bacon or maple bacon. Oh, that was delicious. I tasted some. I stopped by one of the stations, excuse me. Delicious orange juice, coffee, trying to think of what else. There was a pancake mix in there. There was some maple syrup. There was a dessert bread that looked like something that all you had to do was put heat to it and it would just melt in your mouth, not in your hand. So I just have to say that those baskets were well received by the firefighters. And on this particular trip, I came out to 58 with baskets for the A, B, and C shift. And Councilmember Rachel Kurtz wanted to join me as I made my rounds to stations 56, 57, and 58. So she stopped by with her Labrador, and I forgot its name already. It might be Laura or Londa or something similar. And we sat and talked with the crews for a little while, and just basically got a chance for them to, receive the generosity of the San Rafael Fire Foundation. So all that to say, I hope the crews enjoyed that treat and that feast. I know I would have, certainly, given what I just tasted, that bacon by itself and that juice, it just mouth-watering. So if any of you have a chance, swing by Andy's Market and grab some one day just to see. Miss Laura Franklin of the Miss Laura Franklin's kindergarten class at Mary E. Silvera. So, let me make sure I'm saying that right.
You got it right.
Silvera? Did I say it right the first time? Silvera?
Yes, you did.
Okay, I thought maybe it was Silveira or something like that. So I just, Silvera, great. The crew at 58, Captain Subateller, Engineer Brian Smith, and firefighter paramedic Sean Day came by and actually shared a couple of interesting stories and taught the class about what the day in the life of a firefighter would be like. And the students were all ears and eyes. And so given that, we have a great photograph of them sitting there, and the students tuned in. I got to tell you, when they get about 5 or 6 years older than that, it's going to be a struggle to keep their attention. I know, because I used to go to the schools and try to have one-on-ones with the class, and there'd be somebody with their head down on the desk. This is Oakland. I don't know if it's going to be true in Marinwood. There'd be somebody else looking at their phone. It was just, hey, stop it. What are we doing here? So that's the perfect age. You want to go and engage them because they're still listening. That being said, that was a great snapshot, and thanks for sharing that, Miss Laura Franklin. Acting Captain Qualified, Engineer Jeff Smith. Over the last couple of years, he's been working hard to meet the requirements that are outlined in our Memorandum of Understanding. And so the pre-qualifications, the courses and the training, and the evaluations that all 3 shifts have to provide to Jeff really landed on the idea that he's more than prepared, and that they're more than confident that he's capable of meeting the expectations of a company officer in an acting capacity, and that usually translates into a permanent capacity if that opportunity ever were to surface. And so given that, our congratulations go out to Jeff Smith for being qualified now to act captain. And to quote Captain Papanikolaou, he said he had the pleasure of working with Jeff on a shift for the last 3 years. And he's confident in his ability to fulfill the role. He's proven himself as a reliable team member and consistently demonstrates excellent technical ability, problem-solving skills, and attention to detail. His competency and calm demeanor have earned him the respect of his peers, and he'll have no trouble adapting to the role of supervisor as required. And so that's a ringing verification of somebody's suitability and readiness. And so I appreciate Captain Papanikolaou taking the time to really express just how important this is to have Jeff meet this benchmark and meet this ability. And so I just have to say that that effort, although it takes time, it's a reward that he'll see over time as he gets more opportunities to act. And that may come, who knows, as soon as this summer, or when somebody goes on vacation, or if there's a strike team deployment. It's very timely. So I'm glad to see he's completed it before we get into our heavier part of the season this year. Last but not least, take a guess. Those numbers look real close to numbers I've seen. I say that every time, but 5 minutes 20, I think I've seen 5 minutes 22. I've seen 5 minutes 28. This time, 5 minutes 20 seconds. Again, an excellent testament to our crews and their ability to get out the door quickly and get on scene quickly. When you have a total response time, or an average response time, of 5 minutes and 20 seconds, you give individuals who have a cardiac event or some other traumatic event an opportunity to survive that event. And that's done in part by the engineer and the company officer and or the firefighter knowing their district so well, so they know multiple ways to get to that district or to that location. And they know multiple ways of getting there, coming from different directions. They may be out shopping, they may be on the other end of their district, but if they know how to get and expedite to their location, because they're not always at quarters when a call comes in. So you have to be mindful and think about that. But to be able to get there as quickly as they do comes well within NFPA standards and recommendations for average turnout and total response time. So I wish other agencies and other crews could see this on a regular basis and use this as a benchmark, because this is, I won't say it's unheard of, but it's top notch. And so I'm going to just sing their praises, because this continues to be something that I marvel at, and I'm probably going to continue to marvel at it even after I've retired. So just wanted to share that so you guys can really know and understand how well our personnel are operating, knowing their districts as thoroughly as they do, and making it a concerted effort to get out the door quickly when there's an emergency. So that being said, if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those questions. And I think there was one thing I did want to speak on that I don't have the best answer for, but I believe it was Director Case who inquired about the trees on Miller Creek Road, the eucalyptus, the red eucalyptus, and whether or not we'd be able to get some resolve on that. Is that correct? Was it you, or was it?
It wasn't me. I think it was somebody from the fire commission, but I'll take
From our
credit for
fire
a good
commission
question.
meetings.
Oh, well, in that case, I'll hold reserve comment for another time. I know you got other items on it, but I will say just briefly, I took a look at and I photographed the area, because I've reached out to Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority staff on this, and they've reached out to others in the county and gotten no response. They suggested maybe we look at this and make it a project and work closely with Quinn and her staff to see what they can do to address some of this. When I reached out to Quinn about it, she didn't really necessarily see this as a significant threat or danger or high priority item, but I don't know that she gets to make that determination. And so for me, I went over and looked at the location. I took photographs of it, and I see clearly where there's an opportunity to perhaps engage PG&E like she suggested. But if you look at the power lines, they're actually pretty clear and away from the limbs and what have you. And so with that, the areas where I did see encroachment looked like it was television and phone and or cable. And those ran literally through the limbs. And so my question would be, could I go back to PG&E and compel them to address those limbs? Or is the television and phone and cable, are those folks somehow responsible with PG&E? I'm assuming they're connecting with PG&E utilizing their utility pole. So it still may fall back on PG&E. So I want to do a little more research on that, because I haven't seen a situation in the past where PG&E would not limb an area that's just connected to their power lines. It would normally limb an area that might hit any lines that were on that pole. And I say that seeing what they did here near my home in Oakland. But I just want to make sure as I'm proceeding on this, I'm knocking on the right doors and I'm asking the right questions of the right individuals so that I can get some resolve on this. Short of that, I think I'm trying to make a compelling case using the key buzzwords to get folks' attention, but also to get some movement on this, because I do see a concern as far as a crown fire, but I don't know that we see a concern as far as the lines themselves that actually would pass through limbs and what have you. Now, if one of those lines were to come down, clearly we got a problem, because it'll fall right down on top of those limbs and the other foliage there, and that could be an issue. So I'm gonna try to finesse this as best I can. But I just wanted to share with you guys that there's ongoing conversation about this, but we may not have immediate resolve. So I'm going to continue to partner with Eric and others on how we can approach this strategically and get something done about it. But still looking at the different options.
Can I just add one thing just to it? It was Tom from the fire commission that added it, but what
Okay.
PG&E does is they will go in and they will chop off one limb that's touching their line. And so that's why so many of the trees are very lopsided. And then with our winds, other branches come down, not on the PG&Es, but the trees are so lopsided. That's why.
Right.
So
It would seem there should be I don't know, a artistic or a aesthetic look when you're going to lop off something, create some balance, create some visually appealing. You know, don't just come in and butcher the trees because it's on your line.
I asked that the last time they came and just chopped off. I was like, could you like make
Even
sure
it
that
out.
things don't fall afterwards? And they're like, no, we just chop.
well, I
And
think
was
his
like,
other
okay.
concern, yeah, I think his other concern is because it's eucalyptus, and should there be a fire, those will just instantly ignite. And that is our main way out. There's no, unless we get stuck on Lucas Valley, where you're going to have all of Lucas Valley Estates, Lucas Valley, and the other half of Marinwood trying to get out. That's our only other way out.
No, and I recognize that's an evacuation corridor, and that's going to be part of the rationale for trying to put that as a priority project as well. And we're looking at the possibility of doing this as a zone-based project and not just a Marinwood centric project, if at all possible. So there,
Perfect.
again, there's a couple of approaches. I'm not sure where we're going to land and how quickly we can land on it, but I certainly
Yeah.
want to continue to beat the drum on this and knock on the right doors and get the right attention, because to not have anyone from the county respond back, that's problematic in and of itself. It's on the Marinwood Prevention Authority's radar, but I think their hands are tied to some degree unless there's a concerted, focused effort on identifying this as part of the problem, either through the evacuation risk assessment or somehow or another through some other zone-wide priority project that we put forward. And so, yeah, I certainly understand that, trust me. And that's why I say I don't think others have the right to determine what's a priority or what isn't. It's the community and the staff such as yourselves that get to say, we consider this a priority, we want this to move forward, and then we act accordingly.
Perfect. Thank you.
Is
Mhm.
there any other questions or comments?
I just want to echo from the board to Jeff Smith of all his hard work and his dedication to our firehouse and our community for achieving this.
Thank you.
I agree. That's what I was going to say if nobody else said it. Thank you, Kathleen. If there's no other questions or comments, if the public has anything that they would like to share.
Yeah, 1 second, please.
Yes, hi, Chief. This is Stephen Nessel, and thank you for a good detailed report. I want to go back to the beginning of your report. You were talking about the Wildfire Authority, and you were referring to, I think, what you called your yearly work plan, and I'm kind of intrigued with that. This yearly work plan, can you describe what it is and how you use it to organize your task throughout the year and what you do to hold your team accountable? And lastly, whether you think it's a useful project, whether it helps you achieve your results. I'm interested because I think it's something we could be doing more of.
Yes, if you're done with the question.
Yeah, that's all I
Okay.
have. You're a
All right,
professional, and I appreciate the professional management that is required of the fire service.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, so that you understand, Marinwood does have a work plan that's submitted every year, and the effort is partnered with the San Rafael staff and Quinn Gardner and the other vegetation management personnel such as Kate Anderson and Simon Wright and Josiah Gorey and Manny Albano and others, Mary Scramstad. All of these staff come together and they look at projects that need to be completed in the Marinwood community. And those, can range from how we're addressing the open space areas, the goat grazing and herbivory treatments, the evacuation corridors, the roadside clearances, the trails, the projects like we just described on Miller Creek Road and the median. Any number of areas that are receiving attention, whether it be deliberate mechanized work or hand crew work or direct assistance. These are all projects that are normally put forward every year that we expend the funds that are available within Marinwood to go out and achieve the risk reduction and vegetation reduction and fuel reduction efforts in strategic areas where we move from one location to the next year after year, and some are just maintenance projects that have to be done annually. But this actually occurs every year. The Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority website has a list of all projects that have been submitted. And so I would encourage you to take a look at that website, and you can get more detail about those things that are actually on the horizon or planned for Marinwood and other agencies adjacent. Currently, Director Mark Brown is also touring different agencies, going to councils and boards and sharing information about the Ross Valley Open Space Shaded Fuel Break Project. And that's a 38-mile long project that's going to tie in a lot of 200-foot reduction adjacent to private property throughout that particular area. And so if you see that type of effort going on, that's just a fraction of the work that's happening throughout the county right now. But everyone in the county has to submit a work plan to outline the different projects they're proposing to complete for the upcoming fiscal year.
Thank you, Chief. That was quite complete. Is there another comment or question from the public?
No.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Have a great night. It was very, very thorough, and we do appreciate your tireless efforts to help us out in our community.
Thank you. And you guys have a great evening as well. Thank you very
Good
much.
night. Stay safe.
Take care.
Thanks, Chief.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So moving on to Parks and Recreation matters. Does anybody have any questions about the draft minutes of the Park and Recreation Committee from the 26th? Okay. Is there any?
I don't know if Chris wanted to give a recap on it or not.
Oh, Chris, did you want to give a recap?
Yep, for sure. It was actually a pretty quick meeting. There's nothing, we had probably the biggest thing was just talking to the Juarez family, which was really special and nice. And obviously we've covered that tonight. There were a couple questions about what I had brought up in terms of, just looking at capital projects, but obviously that's going to be, sounds like dealt with next month. Luke reviewed some of the highlights, some of which I think he's going to go over tonight. Luke, in your piece, and I don't remember if we covered it in ours last month, but rehiring Guy, and just looking at the drinking fountain and things like that. Commissioner Benesh asked for an update on the trail, which obviously will happen now that we have an update. In terms of public comment, I think the thing that jumped out at me was Stephen had mentioned the possibility for some family camps, that maybe we could capture some interest on Saturday mornings. If I'm not mistaken, Stephen, I think that's the time frame you were talking about. There was some discussion about the Fireman's Picnic area and the barbecues there, but that was already brought up a little bit tonight as well from Stephen. And then that was it. We really wrapped with just coming back to the capital improvement projects that will be that we'll kind of get a connection to next month. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them since I was there.
I am good. Kathleen, Bill? All right. Are there any public comments?
Oh, 1 second. Stephen.
Yes, another good report, Chris. I really appreciate you filling out the details. There were a couple of things that I think you missed. First of all, when we were talking about big projects, and when we say big long-term projects, we're talking, maybe, I don't know, 10 years out. But we know at some point we're going to have to address the pool, perhaps replace it, just like Lucas Valley Estates did, and you brought that up, and I think that's worth mentioning. It's just putting it out there on the radar. It was a really great little discussion. Also, there was a new commissioner, I forget the commissioner's name. He was wondering why these board meetings were not recorded, because we're of course on Zoom, and Eric said, well, he doesn't record them, but if you want to know anything, basically talk to me. And I really think, quite frankly, we've got almost a $7 million budget. It's kind of ridiculous how much money we have coming in, not to record meetings like virtually every other agency in Marin County. Just borders on ridiculous to me. It doesn't cost a lot of staff time to do. It just means hit record and upload it to the YouTube, our YouTube channel. And the benefit of this is these big ideas, like maybe a new pool, we can get these ideas out in the community. We can build a dialogue, build support for these big ideas. I think it's very important. We're also building community when we do that. Let's not isolate ourselves. Anyhow, that was part of what was discussed at the meeting, and I just want to make sure that was captured. We all also talked about Jimmy Juarez for quite some time, and it was a nice little interchange that we had. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephen, for your comment. Eric, is there any other comments, public? No? Okay, so moving on to the recreation and park maintenance activity report. Luke, the floor.
Thanks, Yvonne.
is yours.
I'm going to start on the parks side tonight. And kind of the biggest news of the last month is that we did just hire a new parks maintenance employee, which is exciting. His name's Cesar Alvarez, and he started this week, and we're really excited to have him. Cesar has an extensive background in landscape maintenance, irrigation, turf management. He's worked on a lot of golf courses and some parks and other things. And so, yeah, he started this week, and we're 2 days in, and it's going great. We're really excited to have him on the team. Not just because of the knowledge and experience that he brings, but just the fact that our staff is made whole again after a handful of months of being short-staffed. So we're really looking forward to seeing how Cesar integrates into the team and can help us fill that out. And right now it's going to be a lot of training and just getting him up to speed on how we operate. But he's a real smart guy, real nice gentleman. And if you see him out in the parks, just feel free to say hi. He's a real friendly guy, and we're just really pleased to have him on staff. So that's the big good news on the park side. Some other fun things that have been going on this last month. The straw program has been kind of resurrected after a couple of years off due to COVID. And that's a program that does a lot of restoration work in the creek area along the Panhandle. They work with the middle school students at Miller Creek, and they remove a lot of invasive species and plant native plants, and which helps a lot with our ecosystem and curbing erosion. And they hadn't been around for a couple of years. They just did some cursory waterings and things during the pandemic. But on this last week, it was a large group out there. I mean, there was like 30 plus students and around 10 adults supervising, and they did a lot of great work. Removed a ton of ivy and blackberry, and planted some stuff, and just really cleaned up the area along the creek, pretty much between the fireman's picnic area and the park maintenance facility was the area that they focused on. And our staff, per the usual, we lent them use of our dump trailer, and we removed the debris when they were finished. And the area is looking really great. So we're really grateful to see them back helping us and helping the creek stay healthy and the area around that. So that was great to kind of have that resume after a couple of years off. We also have the staff out there this week doing some turf fortification before the summer camps start in about a month. So we're doing adding some topsoil, seeding. We did some aerating last week, and we'll be fertilizing and just getting things as green and strong as possible before the onslaught of the campers all over the grass all summer. So staff are working on that this week, and that's going really well. To touch on the question about the tennis courts, so I'm not 100% sure what was left to cover from the last meeting, but just to sort of cover what's going on with our tennis courts, we did just have a top coat treatment done to the upper courts, which are courts 1 and 2, the ones closest to the street, closest to Miller Creek Road. And there was a treatment done to kind of remove the previous layer of on those courts, and then to fill the cracks and add another a slurry coat with another paint job. And this is just a placeholder. This is not a full resurfacing, but this court will add that treatment will add playability to the courts for a few more years. And there are cracks that have appeared on those courts since the work was done, and that is to be expected. That's actually written into the proposal for the work. There's a lot of things that contribute to cracking in the courts. Most of that's due to weather. So hot days, cold nights, rain, all contribute to the cracks opening up. And there's only so much that this top kind of cursory treatment it can do for the courts. Eventually, those courts will need to be fully resurfaced, but we're not there yet. Based on our assessments from some of our experts that we work with and consult with, the courts are in really good condition, and the cracks are small and they will hold for a while. And if we do get an area that's problematic, we will get it repaired before the next treatment is scheduled. And then when the courts get to a point where they're no longer where the treatment's not going to hold for long enough, that's the time when we will look at doing a surfacing. So what we're doing now is kind of keeping the courts playable until the time comes when we need to do a bigger treatment for them. Courts 3 and 4, the courts down by the middle school, are in worse shape than the top courts or the upper courts. And those are due to receive a new top coat in the next year, and then we will do repairs on those as needed. We did just get some of the cracks and holes that had formed in those courts repaired in conjunction with the treatment we did to the upper courts most recently, which was about a year ago. And so those are on the schedule to be treated within the next year, and we'll do that. We are evaluating and getting numbers from different companies, kind of unofficial estimates for what it will take to fully resurface the lower courts, and dealing with how that will work with access from the middle school to get heavy equipment out there. And it's a whole process to do that. But we are doing research on that, and we'll determine. We want to make sure we don't, spend money on another top coat if a resurfacing is the thing that's really needed. So before we do that, we'll make sure that we're taking the appropriate treatment to those. So there are cracks on the courts. They're in much better condition than they were back when I started here. And these treatments that we are doing are keeping them playable in a way that the lower courts were not playable 7-8 years ago. So we have been able to kind of resurrect those and keep those going. But they're by no means in perfect condition, and we are looking at what it's going to take to get those fully resurfaced. In the meantime, we're doing what we can to keep them playable. I don't know if that answers all the questions, but that's the information that I have, and that's kind of where we're at on the tennis courts. So
Luke, just before you keep going, maybe if Jason has specific things, he can come and reach out to you, not during a board meeting, or maybe take pictures of exact areas that he feels like make those courts unplayable, and have that discussion with you at a later date.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Siobhan.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great. And I do, encourage Jason and anyone else from the public that has concerns or questions or feedback about the courts. Yeah, definitely contact me via email, phone, come by. I'm happy to talk about it and kind of, have a longer conversation there. So yeah, thanks, Siobhan.
Perfect. Sorry for interrupting.
No, not at all. And then moving over to the recreation side, just touch on a few updates. I'm not going to talk too long, but Chris mentioned it, and I don't remember if I mentioned this in the last board meeting, but Guy Doers, who's been a long time employee of the district, he is an individual who's an adult with developmental disabilities that has been attending our pool for most of his life, and we hired him in 2010 as part of a program with his organization that he's a part of called PDS, which is People with Disabilities Succeeding, and they have a work program for their participants and clients to help get them jobs in various areas. And so Guy got a job back in 2010 helping us with some custodial duties, and he's been working here ever since. Had to take a long break during COVID because he's very high risk for COVID and you know, major effects from that. But we've been able to have Guy come back and start working again last week, and that's been really exciting. And we've also had another individual from PDS join Guy. His name's John Paul, not to be confused with John Paul, who works in the rec department. But JP or John Paul is going to be accompanying Guy on his job. They come 2 days a week for a couple hours, and they do a bunch of cleanup around the park, around the building. And we're really excited to be able to have them back here and to support that program. And it's great to have them, and they're doing great. Guy is looking great. He's in good health, and we're just really excited to have him back and excited to have him be a part of our team again. So that's been a really exciting thing. And we're just really happy to have him in the office and around the ground. So if you see him, say hi. Guys and JP are both really friendly guys, and they're just helping keep our parks clean when they're here a couple days a week. So that's been awesome. And then lastly, just a shout out to the recreation department, specifically Robin Bruton and John Paul Kessler. Robin's our assistant recreation director. She oversees our summer camp program and all of our youth programs and a bunch of our special events and a bunch of other things. And we've just had, with COVID still playing a major role in staffing challenges, we've had, you know, preschool teachers having to be out for a week or more at a time. We've had after school staff having to miss for weeks at a time. We have a preschool teacher that's out with a disability, out on it with an injury right now. And Robin has been filling in as a preschool teacher, as an after school counselor, wrangling all sorts of new people, trying to hire people to help step in. And she's been continuing to hire and train staff. She's been teaching CPR classes to get our giant summer staff, which is huge. Our summer camp staff is over 200 people, or 150 to 200 people, mostly high school and college age, that we get trained in CPR, and most of that training comes from us doing classes for them. And Robin teaches those almost weekly, along with teaching babysitter training and just kind of keeping the office going. So Robin has been pulling long hours and just stepping in to make sure all of our programs continue running smoothly, making sure everything is going well. And I'm just really, I really admire and am impressed with Robin, her dedication to keeping our programs going. The spring is the hardest time for the rec staff because we have a bunch of programs happening, a bunch of planning to do, and we don't have a lot of staff at this time of the year. And summer comes, we get everybody back from school, everybody back from college, and we've got a huge crew. But during the spring, it's definitely a skeleton crew, and it can be very challenging, especially with things like COVID-19 that require people to be out for specific amounts of time if they're exposed or test positive. And so that has been an added challenge this year. And John Paul similarly at the pool has had to step in, and if you're a swimmer, you'll see him down there lifeguarding at all hours of the day, just filling in for staff here and there that have to quarantine or be out for other reasons. And they've kept great attitudes and fulfilling all their normal job duties, but also adding these other things that other people are normally doing. And I'm just very proud of them and very happy to have them on board. So just a shout out to them for all of their dedication and hard work. And everyone's looking forward to summer, which, although it's hugely busy, we just have a really big staff that can kind of help us weather that. So one more month, looking at my calendar, a little more than a month, and we'll kind of be in action there. So that's all I really wanted to highlight for my report this time around, but please let me know if anyone has any questions or would like me to touch on anything else in detail. Thank you.
I have a few questions. I should probably know this. The back tennis courts 3 and 4. I know that a lot of that land over there is also Miller Creek's. Are they our tennis courts, or are they shared with Miller Creek?
That's a great question, Kathleen. Those tennis courts are technically on Miller Creek's middle school property, and we have an agreement with the middle school for that that we can utilize those tennis courts for our programs, and we assume the maintenance responsibility for those courts, though they exist on school property. And okay. we're very pleased with that agreement and where it stands right.
Okay, and then my other one, and I know that you guys are looking into this, but I also wanted to see, and can be for next month, is an update on our contract with this landscape company. There are a handful of residents that live along that walkway that are not happy with the company, the guys that work it. And so I know that this falls under you. I don't want to micromanage. I know that they have a lot of turnover, and you've done hours and hours of intervention with them to try to make sure that it's done. But I just wanted to bring it up again to see, you know, I don't know if it's in the budget or not, but see what the difference is if we can get a different company or whatever the outcome is.
Kathleen, thanks for that. Well, just to clarify, when you say the walkway, are you referring to Creekside Trail, or is there a different walkway you're referring to?
I mean, the only one that matters, the one from Quietwood all the way.
Oh, that one. Okay, okay.
The one that personally affects me. Just kidding. I didn't even know there was a walkway on Creekside. I didn't even know there was a park over there, remember? Or a tennis court. So yeah, just there's a few houses that live, like one of them's on Quietwood, one of them's on Miller Creek. I haven't even gone all the way to Peachstone. That's someone else's territory. But I just know
people out, right?
Yeah, like one of our neighbors is waiting for the chipper day to cut down dead limbs and have them chipped away. And I said, go for it. Have fun. So.
No, that's good. And I can definitely address and give kind of an update on that contract. Next time around, I have to do a little bit of homework for that. But just to know, yeah, the landscape company that we use, Land Design, they are responsible for maintaining those walkthroughs, along with a bunch of other areas and a bunch of other responsibilities. When it comes down to some of the tree maintenance on those walkways, we do sometimes have to bring out other contractors to handle, you know, tree trimming or if there are hazards. And I do encourage anybody that has concerns about those walkways to contact me directly. And we can sometimes deal with those either through the landscape company, if it's within the kind of the contract confines, or if it's something that we need to go above and beyond that and do something in-house or hire a different type of contractor to come out. But you know, I just encourage anyone, you know, definitely to touch base with me. And we have done a lot of work out there in the last year. It's a long stretch, and there's multiple stretches of walkway throughout the neighborhoods there. But we had a lot of tree work done on some of those areas, and there's probably more to be done. But definitely, it's on our radar. But if anyone has specific concerns, I would, you know, appreciate them contacting me directly so I can make sure we address those.
I tell them.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, I just want to be conscious that it's
Thank you.
9:15. Just make sure that you welcome Mr. Alvarez from the board, that we are super excited to have him on board. And I have told the original Jean-Paul and Robin, thank you so much, especially when I went over there earlier yesterday, right after the hailstorm that we had, and they were out there. I said my appreciation, but I did not realize how much is on Robin's plate. So please, you know, let her know we totally appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Bill and Chris, do you guys have any questions? Otherwise, we'll go to the public.
I don't have any questions. I'm just excited to hear about the capital improvements next month. I'm assuming that will include like maybe costs for the complete resurfacing of those back tennis courts. And I, you know, maybe looking at expanding some of our offerings with things like, you know, do we put pickleball lines on there if we're going to resurface them and, you know, do stuff like that? There's a lot of land right next to those tennis courts in the back that clearly belongs to the district, but maybe there's an option for expanding our offerings. There's just a lot of excitement. And I think while we can't do everything all at once, like I would like to, I'm excited to see what you guys have considered and how we can move forward.
Perfect.
Sounds
Bill?
good.
No? Okay. I think that we have one.
Can I add one more thing then? Can you, Luke, in your research, he mentioned what's it called? Pickleball. I know that we had a conversation of the reason why we don't have pickleball lines, and can you just confirm, and so then it's not a repeated conversation again and again and again?
Well, for next month, right?
Correct.
Okay. All
Well,
right.
you can
perfect.
answer it now if you want, but it's up to you.
Oh, it's 9:15.
Well, I can, I mean, as I get, if we're gonna talk about capital expenditures, it might make sense to just do it all as part of what it costs to do the different types of work on the tennis courts. I'd be happy to speak on that more in depth next time around, if that makes sense.
That sounds perfect. All right, let's go to the public.
1 second.
Hi. I guess I could start a number of places. First of all, everything's looking great. I've been over the pool. Luke and his team have been doing a good job. I wanted to talk about a couple things. First, pickleball. The reason why pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the country, and it has been for a number of years. People of all ages enjoy the sport, and I do think courts 3 and 4, the lower courts, is the ideal location for it. We do not have tennis players don't have exclusive rights to those courts. I think they could share them. The good thing about pickleball players is they tend to be older. They tend to play during the day, where tennis courts are used after school and towards the evenings. So it is fully compatible. Most every other jurisdiction in Marin County has pickleball as part of their programs on courts. So, you know, what gives? Why are we giving exclusive access to the professional tennis players? These courts belong to the community, and they should serve the community. Unfortunately, when talking with the fire chief regarding the work plan, I didn't actually get the answer I was looking for. He gave me a lot of detail. I really wanted to talk about the process of a work plan. And I think that's what's missing in our parks. We don't have a yearly work plan. We don't have longer term objectives. We don't have standards of care in our park. And I will give a recent example where we're doing landscaping work by bucket loader to remove bushes, and it looks absolutely terrible. And there is a right way to do that. We need professional management of our open spaces and our parks. And unfortunately, we don't have the staff resources to do it, but we can with the will. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, so moving on to H, board members of items of interest, requests for future agenda. I think we have a bunch of things that we've requested. Does anybody have anything else? Okay. Is there I guess the date of our next regular board meeting is June 14th. And at 7:30, be here, be square in the Zoom square, sorry. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
Or did I
moved.
miss something? Oh, wait, no, public comment on items of interest for next time. Sorry, I was too quick on the draw. I liked my little comments about being square and forgot about public comment, sorry.
It's really more of a rectangle on the screen.
Oh, thank you, Bill. Go ahead, Stephen.
You did a great job tonight, Siobhan. So thank you very much for conducting a great meeting. There was one other thing that I wanted to bring up. And I guess we can talk about it at a future meeting. If you look at the maintenance area, one of the issues that I have with our maintenance team is their lack of organizational discipline. I don't mean management, I mean organizing the stuff that they have. And if you'll see, they've started to expand outside their gates. We can be tolerant during this transition period, but if you look inside the gates, you'll see it's pretty messy in there. And that's why, the reason why they have required so much space, because they do not have organizational discipline of their work areas and storage. And, why do we have a rack just outside the gate? Well, I guess it's the only place that they could put it. But honestly, we need policies in place for our landscaping crews. They serve the park. They are not we shouldn't be working around their needs. They should be working around our needs. And we want to give them adequate space, but no more, because the park belongs to the people. So hopefully that will be something that comes up in the future. And also, I would lastly like to say, and this is kind of an aside, they say you can get more with honey than vinegar, and I actually have some hives in my backyard. And if any of you are interested in Marinwood, Quietwood Drive honey, I'd be happy to bring you over a jar. You can respond after this if you're interested. I promise not to poison any of them. Okay, so that's it. I will talk to you.
Thank you, Stephen, and for your kind offer about honey and for agreeing not to poison us, which I'm sure you wouldn't do even if you agreed not to do it. We love the discussions with you. So, all right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Nope. I got it first. Yeah, I got it first.
Do you want to second it, Chris?
Oh. No.
Second.
Are you okay with this feedback, Tiffany?
Oh, yeah, I'm writing it all down.
Okay. Yep, the thumbs up, the double thumbs up.
Good
Okay.
job, Beth. Kidding.
All right. I think that we're all silly tired, and we will see everybody next month.
Wait. Have a great weekend.
Yes, everybody have a great.
Don't we have to vote?
Yeah.
Vote on adjourning, you don't know.
Oh,
I
good.
didn't think we needed to vote on adjourning. I'm like,
No, you're good. Thank
Bye,
you,
guys.
Thank you, everybody.
stay safe, everybody, and
See you
COVID
next
free.
month. Bye.
Hey.